webcam.
Oh, there it is.
Stop.
We did it. We did it.
Woo!
And totally worth it.
Oh my God. The big reveal.
It's good to see you.
It's me, everybody.
It's Dr. Jacob Tingle here on the Open Athletes Show. After technical difficulties, show already in progress. How are you, sir? How are things? How is being at campus? I miss it. I'll be back in October.
Yeah, it's great. Today is the first day of class at Trinity,
Amazing.
and I am on academic leave for the semester. So that means I'm wearing shorts,
Same here.
which feels very weird to be in my office when classes are in session and wearing shorts.
The kids don't want to see your knees,
That
so
it's it doesn't
something
need
to
to
fix.
happen. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, first day of class, everyone's always there's this jubilant mood around campus. I think the kids call it some kind of aura, that it's good aura or something. I don't know. It's
Kids
something like
speak.
that.
Yep.
Yeah. The flowers are planted. The tower is chiming. So it's a good day on campus.
The logo is logoing.
Yeah. Well, here's one of my first props there.
See, there we go. That's the good logo. That's the soccer logo. We love the tower logo, and people are going to be like, Trinity University, what's that? Let me tell you, folks. It's
Let
a
me tell
top
you.
50 liberal arts school in the state of Texas.
That's it. Yeah. That's us.
uh, we met in the fall semester of 2012.
Yeah.
14 years ago, I took my first freshman year, what was it? Freshman year sport management 101 class. And I'm happy that 14 years later, you are now on the Open Athletes Show.
Interesting full circle
It
here.
is full circle. I've always been asking you questions, and so this is actually no different. Much of our show revolves around the money movement in sports.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot happening in the NBA teams are valued at the more so than they ever have been. Private equity is moving in. We're going to touch a little bit about on that. Hopefully we can go 15, 20 minutes with you. If you need a hard stop, please let me know.
Yeah, it's good.
Uh, in the last 14 years together, how have you seen sports and the money of sports and the business of sport change?
Yeah, lots. I'll just rattle off a couple of them and then we can go into maybe some like more detail
Mm.
about some of those, right? The rise of gambling, legal gambling, what I call the Los Angeles Dodgers syndrome, and college sports, I think, are the three biggest places where I've seen like some pretty radical, I would classify as radically different ways of doing business since you and I, met in that sport and society course, 14 years ago. There are lots of other little ways I think things have changed, but those are the really big three from my standpoint.
Yeah.
And not any particular, not in that order. Just those are the three that came to mind.
Much of our conversation here that I have with our audience and growing every day on our live stream, but also our newsletter, is that I can't yet determine if these things are good or bad. Because I don't know. Am I seeing the same thing happening with the Pittsburgh Pirates, just spending as little as they possibly can and doing the thing that the Pittsburgh Pirates have always done? Yes. And then are we seeing teams that are maximizing their ability to make money and maybe spend back on the teams because they know that championships brings in more money? I don't know. I don't understand. We've seen the valuations increase 3x in the last year for many of these NBA franchises, and the
Yeah.
valuations of these teams have increased drastically. I don't have a finger to point. I don't know. I don't know what's happening in sport, and I was hoping that you can help us diagnose some of these things that are happening.
Yeah, I don't know either. I do in some ways I wonder, especially what you talk about the valuations of some of those teams, like rising through the stratosphere, you know, pretty quickly, quicker than they should. I don't know the answer to that, but like I do wonder like what were people feeling in like 2006 around about the tech industry, or like, the housing industry
Mm-hmm.
before like 2008, and 97 or 98, like I've got to feel pretty good about my tech stocks. I do wonder, like, is that where we are? I don't think it's that, because there's an actual product being sold, there's an
Mm-hmm.
actual thing. So I don't think it's that necessarily, but it is a little bit troubling to think about so many of the people that are making decisions in sport, like just the kind of almost the front line or mid level kind of managers, almost have no idea what's going on a day to day basis. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I don't even know that the owners know what they're doing. Um, because it just money looks good and let me go get more of it. But is that really? And again, I talk about the Dodger syndrome. Like, I don't. I think I saw something like it's 100 or it's 1 billion or something that they're going to owe after the life of all of these contracts of these players is
Mm-hmm.
paid. And I just don't think that's healthy for the sport. If you have the money, spend it now. Like, so it's like it's making a mockery of a sport that already doesn't even have a salary cap. That's
Mm-hmm.
already kind of mockery. And it's just like you're spending money that you don't have right now. And at what if you don't have it?
Ever.
What's the Strait of what if whatever the owner of the Dodgers is, what if their equivalent of the Strait of Hormuz happens and they can't pay those salaries? I don't,
Right.
it's just that's a thing to me that's really actually troubling, where you're spending money that you literally don't have right now and that we're allowing that to happen. I don't know. It's like the ultimate kind of stock market play,
Right.
but you're actually like real people. And what does happen to the Pirates, who historically on purpose underspend, but now they can't even, or the Tigers, who can't even keep your best player, who literally should be your franchise player, but you can't keep that guy because you would be stupid to keep him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. In some ways, I feel like there's some equivalency with like some of the transfer portal stuff. I've got a good friend who's a senior associate athletic director at a mid major, right? If it would be a name of a school that you would know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say, I'm not even going to say the part of the country. But what this person was saying the other day that um, Ohio State and or the equivalent, right, recognizes that the setter on our volleyball team, this volleyball team, is the best setter in the country. And Ohio State and UCLA and everybody missed on her. And so now that this university has invested time and resources into getting her as good as she can possibly be, now that she's a junior, right on the verge of like, we could qualify for the national tournament, which is a big deal if you're a mid major, right? Ohio State comes and offers her $1 million to go play volleyball at Ohio State. And like, but you didn't do your job on the front end to recruit her, and now you're reaping the benefits. And then I can't blame the athlete. I'm going to get $1 million to go play volleyball at Ohio State, a bigger school. And so where is that? I guess that's to me is where is that all going? And it just doesn't seem like a healthy direction in
We've
either one of those examples, right?
we've talked for a while, decades now, you and me, about sport being a microcosm of society.
Yeah.
Number one, can you? I say that on the show a lot. Can you explain the connection between what you're seeing in sport? We talk about NIL and the money movement and Ohio State spending millions of dollars from money they're getting from media deals that other teams can't do, and how athletes are able to move because there's no rules and regulations anymore really barring them from making any of those decisions, which I think on the free market is a good thing. That an athlete is making $1 million on their
Yeah.
performance. But I think, back to your Dodgers example too, right now there are no rules. Or there are rules that aren't being enforced.
Yeah.
And I think sport being a microcosm of society in itself is that a lot of rules that we are seeing both in sport and out of sport are not being enforced. And I think
Yeah.
if an athlete can make $1 million, then take advantage of it. But the fact that a school can come in and just swoop an athlete up, the fact that that can happen is, some would say good for sport and some would say bad. But I'm curious your thoughts on how we bring that back into a perspective that our folks can understand.
Yeah, I think and just I'll kind of get around to that, but just in that very specific example, I think
Mm-hmm.
about like, is it really good for the athlete? Yes, I've got $1 million in my
Mm-hmm.
pocket that I didn't have. But in terms of their own, like I heard, it was a really interesting conversation 3 or 4 years ago, like right when NIL was like just on the cusp of happening. So maybe 4 years ago. And, the question was about like, okay, so you're an athlete and so you have to go to classes still, right? That's part of your obligation. And you have to go to practice and you have to go to film session. You have to go to weight room. And unless it's a, pay to watch the grass grow job, if it's a legitimate kind of NIL deal, then you have to do that too, right? So when are you supposed to be an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old or grow and like kind of have any kind of identity, right? And so you are, in the nature of this show, you are your own entrepreneur. You're going and doing your thing. But what is the foundation? When an athlete is a senior and is in their third university or their fourth university, I just don't think that's healthy for the young person, right? And so I guess if you want to go back to that sport is a microcosm of society from Jay Coakley, who is one of the two kind of big foundational scholars in the area of sports sociology, coined that term. He and Harry Edwards being the two really big big kind of godfathers of the field. But I guess for me, there probably been a lot of examples in history where what seems like it's good for labor is actually even better for management, right? If you want to think like just from a Marxian framework, right? Like the owners, the big boss, whoever it is getting more and getting more out of it than the labor, right? And so that's kind of where I think about, yeah, the athletes can do things that they didn't used to be able to do, right? Because you signed a contract to go play at Arizona State, and Arizona State could terminate your scholarship at any point in time, right? And the coach could leave at any point in time, and all of those kinds of things. And we should have been paying athletes all along for meals or like whatever, right? There should have been some kind of commiserate compensation. Johnny Manziel should have been getting money that A&M's bookstore was getting for his jersey sales, right? Maurice Claret, all the names, right? Mm-hmm. That should have been happening. And so to me now the pendulum has swung so far, and it feels like, oh, there's all of this great freedom for labor, but at what cost to the individual's own mental or physical well-being? But then also, I don't know, man, I'm just always one of these, like, whatever feels like if labor's getting it, then management's getting even more. Like they're not. Something is gonna cut in the way of, Ohio State's still going to be a school. They're going to still make billions of dollars off of their TV contract. And that girl that's a setter, that young lady that's a setter playing volleyball, has got her $1 million. And, whatever's going to happen to her is not going to be as good as what's happening to Ohio State, I don't think. And so, like, that's where I think about sport being a microcosm of society. That's where we see right now, like, this huge income inequality gap, right? So, again, the Ohio States of the world and the Sam Houston States of the world, right? This is the upper 1% and the, and the working stiff. That's I just see I see that's playing out and has historically played out, but like on this kind of grander scale, because it feels really good to have the athlete get the $1 million.
Mm-hmm. The underlying effects of that aren't being considered. Because $1 million, because the paycheck is so big.
And again, I can't fault. I mean, if my kid got a call tomorrow from IBM to come offer him $1 million to go work, doing whatever, mm-hmm. and he just moved into Trinity. I'm like, well, okay, like, yeah, go get your $1 million. But IBM's not our, like, Shaquille O'Neal one time said he got like a $250 million contract. And they're like, oh, you're a rich man now. This is amazing. And he said, I'm like, yeah, I got a lot of money, but the guy who can afford to offer me a $250 million contract, that guy's rich. I just got a lot of money. Like the
Yeah.
difference, anyway. So I can't begrudge the athlete, is what I'm saying, but I just don't think ultimately the system is not designed to protect the worker.
No. What happens from here, right? 5 years ago, we're just getting into the NIL world. These big $1 million, multi-million-dollar deals and payments from the university or from the sponsors of that university, from Learfield or whatever marketing intermediary, paying
Yeah.
these athletes as um, paying for their name, image, and likeness. Great on its face. Years later, we're seeing that, yeah, the athletes are making money, but they're going from university to university to university. Obviously, they're not, in some ways, student athlete is still a term that gets thrown around, but of course not. In some cases, a Trinity athlete is not making $1 million a year in NIL.
Yeah.
When you see the face of what's happening in college athletics and are working so closely to college athletes in an athletic department and understand this type of thing, what conversations would you have with an 18, 19-year-old right now or their parents about what the next 4 to 5 years could potentially look like and how to best protect and understand like the value that an athlete has in college athletics?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, that's the, $1 million question. I don't, it is, it's so hard. And I mean, I think about, again, my son just moved in. He's on the baseball team. We'll see how that goes and how fall plays out for him. But he had choices. He could have gone to, other similarly sized institutions. He wanted a private liberal arts institution
Mm-hmm.
to start with. Like, let's get kind of the stuff he wants to study. But he, at the end of the day, he early decision to Trinity. And I said, well, what if you don't get to play baseball there? And he said, I want to go to Trinity. And if I get to play baseball, awesome. Right. And so for me, as a parent and teaching and doing the kind of stuff I do, like, I see significant value in sports, in participation in sport, because I mean, like, I think about all of the stuff that you had to go through, right? And from anybody that knows anything about you and your story, like you're a better person for having done that.
Mm.
It would be in some ways awesome if you didn't have to eat like Subway, like 4 inches of a Subway on the bus while you're sleeping to the next town,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
hurting your back and all those kinds of things, right? It would be awesome if those kinds of things didn't happen to you. But like the story of who you are today is because you played a sport, right? And so the sheer act of playing and participating and moving your body and participating in a team setting and all of those things is wildly valuable to me. And so I guess what I would say is, if I were talking to like the high school senior, I would say, like, really think about why you're doing this. And even if it is you're going to play football at Ohio State, but like, why are you playing football, or why are you playing volleyball? What is this about for you in your life? And I can't answer that for any person, right? But I would just want them to really have an honest conversation with themselves and their families about what they're doing and why it matters to them. Um, and if the answer to that question is because I want to challenge myself and I want to put myself through all kinds of things that other people aren't willing to do, to test myself to see if I can actually play at the highest level, or if I can sprint faster than the next guy, or I can do, if that's the answer to the question, that I want to challenge myself physically and mentally in that way, then I would say go do whatever you want to, then go play at that highest level, go take that NIL money. But why are you playing a sport? to me, that's the kind of the ultimate, the ultimate question. And I don't have an answer to that question. I think each family member or each group of people would need to answer that for themselves. But I will also say, and I think there needs to be uh, across the board more honesty in conversations in terms of what playing a sport means or is, right? So the thing that I'm struggling with right now is because there are no rules with NIL. We'll just use Coach Scannell as an example, right? Um, Timmy goes and finds a great hidden gem in Arizona. Guy, D3 pitcher of the year, and then the next year, that guy's gone. So you've built what you could conceivably think of as a 4-year model, and now I've got 2 more years of this guy is the ace of my rotation. And after the D3 recruiting season's over, this guy's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And now what do you do? And you're, of course, he's super happy for the player, and you can't fault the player. But what does that do to anyone's ability to do any kind of future planning? And then, so what does that do? And I have no idea now I'm going to shift gears because this is what I'm going to say. It would not necessarily apply here, or I don't know. But so now that it is so easy to transfer, so you have a guy that comes in as a junior, or a woman that comes in as a junior to the volleyball team, and the person that came here as a recruited senior, or that busted their behind as a freshman and was ready to get playing time, now you got a guy that was at Furman or Davidson or whatever that's coming to play shortstop, and yeah, he's better. But like, wait, I came here to do this thing, and I was like, I've done all of the things. My turn is next.
Mm-hmm. Traditionally,
right? And so, but because it's so easy to transfer, and because some bigger school could take your best player, like there's this constant. So
mm-hmm.
so that's what I don't know. In the next 4 to 5 years, there has to be some kind of recalibration of that, because I think there's the potential for an entire kind of generation of college athletes to get like lost in the shuffle and not to get the most out of the experience that they could possibly get, because I'm a center back, and the guy that's coming in now as a senior is taking my spot, and what do I do?
Everyone's basically a free agent year over year over
Everyone,
year. Yeah.
right? And so if you're playing the game by like the quote unquote whatever rules you think exist, then like they don't exist anymore. And so it's like, well, like, do I leave Trinity and go play at Mary Hardin Bader because I can play there? Or do I want to be at Trinity and get a Trinity education?
So this thing is affecting Division III athletics then. It has to, right?
It has to be. It has to be. Yeah. Again, because that example with Timmy, that happened, right? D3 pitcher of the year, and the next year is the opening day starter for a Division I team.
Yeah. You can't fault the athlete.
I can't fault the athlete.
Yeah.
At all. But
then it comes down to enforcement, and there are two ways I think you can stop this from happening. Number one is you can't transfer, which has its own drawbacks, or you can't play the next year after you transfer. And obviously we would see a significant decrease in the amount of transfers, like it used to be, like the rule used to be.
That's what it used to be, right?
Yeah. But we were talking earlier about the NCAA. There was a ruling in Colorado that it halted the ability for someone to have a fifth year in Colorado. But the fact that the NCAA is so, I called them feckless, and in some ways they are, because there's an unwillingness to enforce decision-making. But for the longest time, all they were doing was enforcing decision-making, and now there isn't enough enforcement of decision-making, and I think it's bad all the way around for the athletes, the programs, the sport, college athletics in itself. But you can't, and now we're reliant on federal governments or the circuit court judge of appeals to decide whether or not a shortstop can play for a fifth year.
It's yeah,
which is messy.
that's the thing is if the NCAA makes a ruling, then now I'm just going to go sue and get to play my fifth year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like I know that the NCAA is spending millions of dollars on court fees every year, right? And so they went from being like an enforcement agency to like a litigation agency.
Right.
Um, but what like what do you do, right? If I say no, you can't play because you gambled, and then this guy goes and sues, and the judge says, whatever, you can play. What are you talking about? Like I actually am enforcing my rules.
And now someone's coming over the top.
Yeah, and that and I don't know if that was actually going to happen or not, but the only way that kind of stuff is going to stop is if that was at Tech, right? So if like who was it? The Oklahoma, there was like 4 or 5 universities that came out and said we're not playing Tech in any sport then.
Mm.
Like that's what needs to happen. And also thinking about sport as a microcosm of society, there would be a few senators on a particular side of the aisle that all they would have to do is stand up and say we're not going to do this. But their unwillingness to have a backbone is leading to some of the things that are going on in our federal government right now. And I think that's in some ways like as long as Ohio State is fine with UCLA doing whatever they're doing, or again, not those are sorry, just throwing names out. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing specific with those two. But as long as they allow each other to poop in each other's sandboxes and then just pretend the poop doesn't exist, then
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I'm happy you touched on gambling.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about the money from gambling moving into sport. It has always been around sport, and now
Yeah.
it is in sport. I was watching La Liga, and Poly Market was sponsoring the outside banner. The gambling has always been a part of sport, adjacent to sport. You could always bet
Yeah.
on a sportsbook in Las Vegas, and we all knew that the athletes could not participate. But a lot of the things that I talk about as a former athlete is that the proximity to gambling in sport is leading to the temptation of athletes or organizations to participate in these nefariously, right? We're seeing some athletes participating in gambling and getting in trouble if they're being caught. Right now, we only know the athletes who have been caught. The proliferation of gambling and prediction markets and the kryptonization of sport gambling, how can we contextualize it for like our audience of athletes and founders of businesses in sports and people in the front office of professional sports teams? I don't it's not I think we could say whether or not it's good or bad. I think it's bad. I think the
Yeah.
proliferation of gambling in sport is bad on its whole because it takes away from what has never felt totally pure because of the money that's moved into sports. But when gambling is so intertwined with sport, it
Yeah.
changes the habits that we have as fans. Because now I gotta deal with them talking about the money line of this game, and it's all on the ticker, and it's
Right.
it's proliferated like our viewing, where it used to just be on the outside. How do you see gambling's effect on professional college athletics, even youth athletics,
Yeah.
and the eyeballs that all of these kids know what all of these companies are and are doing, and you can just have it
Yeah.
on your phone.
Yeah. I think about like ESPN used to be a news organization, and now it's an outlet to shill gambling. Like when they're literally, I'm at the gym in the morning, and I'm listening to my podcast because that's what I'm doing, learning about like British history or This American Life or whatever. But I've got the video, right? And then I'm like, the guys who are telling you the score of the game then come out of commercial and like, well, the line is this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you a sports reporter? Like, what is so the nature of the role of those guys, and that's why some guys don't work at ESPN anymore. They're like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not going to be reporting what the line is, right? And it's funny, it's not funny. It's tragic, I think, in some ways. Like I've got this quote. I wrote a book chapter in a book a few years ago, and this was about the use of instant replay in the NBA. And one of the subheadings, one of the little sections of the is the impact of gambling on professional basketball, right? And so I have this little thing about the history from the 40s and 50s, and then 2007, the Tim Donaghy thing comes along, right? Gambling, an actual NBA referee actually gambling on actual games, right? And actually impacting the outcome of the games. Like that is a nightmare scenario for any sport organization. But these insert referee, replace referee with player, replace player with coach. Same thing. Like anyone that is actually gambling on games in which they are participating is a nightmare scenario. Unbelievably nightmare scenarios. Because the only reason I watch sports, the only reason I watch baseball as opposed to wrestling is because I truly believe the outcome is unknown, right? When I sit down in the ballpark, even if, Randy Hunter Brown is facing like the left fielder from the Oakland A's or wherever they live now, Sacramento, whatever their name is,
Yeah, whatever.
The Athletics. Um, they could still lose. The Astros can still lose that game as they've shown the last 6 days. They got a wonderful done a wonderful job of losing 4 games to the worst 2 teams in all of it. But that's it. And 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 as a gambler, I have to then believe that I'm taking a legitimate risk, right? That the outcome of this is truly unknown. But because it is so pervasive and because it is so easy and because you can get a VPN from wherever and you can do it somehow, like it's probably also easier for players to hide what they're doing or coaches to hide what they're doing. And again, a missed layup, I could still win the game, right? But I blow the line. And now I've made out, I still get to hold the championship trophy, but is that really what, did you miss that layup?
Mm.
Or did you miss the layup? And that's where I don't know that's where I'm worried about that kind of stuff. I'm also worried about like what does it do to fandom? Like I think that I'd like to think the Lakers will always have fans because they're the Lakers. But there's tons of people now that only follow the players. Like LeBron forever, when he left Cleveland the first time, people like fine, I'm going to go support the Heat. And then I'm going to support Cleveland again. And now I'm going to support LA. And now I don't know where he just went. Where is he now? Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
But
trust the process.
Yeah, they're fans of the guy,
yeah.
Right? Which I think is also endemic of like I'm not a Steelers fan. I need the Steelers wide receiver to get 15 yards on this play because I just put $1,000 on.
Right.
And anyway, so that's part of the issue for me. And the great hypocrisy was, in 2007 when that case happened, like David Stern came flat out, was like, we are like no gambling, nothing, or whatever. And then 2014, Adam Silver writes a little thing. It's like, maybe we should like put gambling, cast it out from the shadows so we can monitor and regulate it more.
Mm-hmm.
And now, again, you have ESPN reporters telling us the line.
There have always been sports books in some European stadium, but now having it in America, I could go to the sports book inside whatever arena.
Right.
It's the proximity, the prevalence of it, and it's frightening when I take a step back and we have these conversations about the money movement in sports. We're seeing teams spend money that they don't have.
Yeah.
On a team on winning right now. We're seeing gambling and prediction markets and the crypto. I said earlier, the crypto indication of this.
Yeah.
Targeting a specific population of people. I just think long term, short term, it's not good for when you're watching the World Cup and you see referees making particular calls or you see decisions being made and now you have to question. And it never used to be like that. You used to think, wow, that's a bad call. But now you can kind of question
Yeah.
things, whether or not it's true
Mm.
or not. But that's what's in my head, and I'm like, it's not the same anymore.
Yeah. Well, and the other, and getting back to thinking about the athlete, right?
Mhm.
I can't remember the number right now, but the level of abuse that, in particular, Division I men's and women's basketball players are getting because of prop betting is is really scary. I mean, they're getting kinds of abuse that is truly affecting mental health.
Mhm.
In like real, like, oh my god, I the guy in my English class next door to me that sits in the next seat might
Bet
have lost $1,000
right,
on me, and what's going to happen when I walk into my English class?
right.
And so that's the other piece, is what say do the athletes have in the proliferation, of gambling, because on whose back is the money being won, and who on whose back, and who's not getting. I mean, you could argue they're getting the rewards in terms of, like, the Kyle Tucker wouldn't be making as much money as he was making if there wasn't gambling money, but he also, it's just an interesting, again, trying to bring it back to the athlete. It's just an interesting to think about, like, who's the real loser here, or I guess maybe frame the other way, who's the real winner?
The organizations and the
Yeah,
companies, and the losers are the fans who this is getting shoved in their face, and the athletes who, I don't think if you bet on Kyle Tucker, I don't think Kyle Tucker is getting any of that money. But he is in a very roundabout way, because the companies that are sponsoring the
sure,
leagues, the money is going to
right,
make its way back to Kyle Tucker.
right. Yeah, poor Kyle, by the way. Uh,
And that's what people are going to say. Oh, he's making $40 million a year. Like, why do you care? Like, I should be able to do that. And
yeah,
that is the give and take. That is like why this conversation, I think, is important to have.
yeah, yeah.
Which we will need to have at another time, because Zoom only gives you 45 minutes.
Oh yeah, there we go. Well, I told you I brought a prop, just since we're,
Yeah.
this is the
Yes.
confluence of all of the worlds.
For
Yeah.
those of you at home, Jose Altuve is Venezuelan Jesus. If you have met any Venezuelan or Houston Astros fan, that's the case. It's very good to see you.
Yeah.
Congratulations on all of the work that you're doing. Let's absolutely stay in touch. Let's have you back. These are conversations that the audience at Open Athletes, that audience that we're building, I think that we need to have. We need to talk about the things that are happening in sport, what is happening on the ground to the athletes, what is happening high up to the money that's moving. And I can think of no better person to have these
Yeah.
conversations with. So thank you.
I appreciate you having me on, for sure. I'm going to be in England the entire month of October, so maybe we can do an international call, and I can talk about what I've witnessed, in some British football, matches or something like that.
I
Yeah.
would love it. I would love
Yeah.
it. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Great to
Thanks,
see
Jared.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.